All right, it's 7 o'clock. Looks like we have a smaller group here, but I'll probably get started. Welcome to the Barton Bridge meeting. Let me move my slides along here. So, this meeting is an informational session about the South Barton Bridge replacement project. This is along the border to border trail. And this is just an initial meeting to kind of discuss the project. We're really in the early project phases at this point. With that, I do see that Commissioner Marzin's online from the Park Advisory Commission, so thank you for joining us. And we'll just get started with some introductions. So, I am Hillary Hansel. I'm a landscape architect and capital project manager for the city park system. We also have online Peter Sanderson from Washtenaw County Parks, also a project manager. We've been working closely for years on border to border trail projects, and he's also just been partnered with us to provide support on this project. And then Michelle Bennett is online as well. She's a senior planner at the city, and she'll just be helping us with engagement support, so helping run the meeting and help me with the Q&A, which will be at the end. So with that, the meeting purpose today is really, like I mentioned, like information sharing about this upcoming project and really just providing an opportunity for you all to ask questions and offer any comments, or suggestions. And then we are applying for a grant with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. So we will be recording the meeting and meeting minutes will be shared as part of that grant application. And then as far as an agenda for today, we'll really just start by talking about the issues that are necessitating replacement of the existing bridge. And then we'll go into explaining kind of our thought process as we weighed various alternatives for what the new replacement structure would look like. We'll also talk about kind of current cost estimates and various funding opportunities, and then talk a little bit about the process from here through construction and what the next steps are. So with that, just want to make sure everyone's aware of which bridge we're speaking about. Barton Nature Area, shown here on the map, has two pedestrian bridges. So one is located up near Barton Dam. You can get to it from the parking area off Huron River Drive. And then there's another longer bridge kind of at the southeast end near the new pedestrian tunnel. That one traditionally had a gravel parking lot of Huron River Drive. So today the bridge we're talking about is the South Barton Bridge. And then just some photos of the existing bridge to help jog your memory of where this is. This is a 300-foot weathering steel bridge. It's the longest pedestrian bridge we have at the city. It was constructed back in 1991, so it's about 35 years old. And this gravel parking lot, which I alluded to, no longer exists. Now, with the pedestrian tunnel, we actually have the border to border trail coming and turning onto the bridge. However, one reason I show this image is that for many years we had water runoff going across Huron River Drive, bringing dirt and debris onto the structure. And it created a lot of issues with premature corrosion of the steel. We made repairs several years ago, but we've known for a while that the bridge would come to a point where it needed major repairs. And so just to know what it looks like this today, this was an in construction photo, but this instead of this dirt parking lot, now we have this border to border trail, both allowing you to turn onto the bridge and allowing cyclists and park users to get onto Huron River Drive. One of the things that's necessitating the replacement need now is we did an inspection about a year ago where we removed some of the wooden decking to really see the condition of the steel. And while we knew there were a lot of issues at the south end, we found additional issues at the north end. Here you can see some of the steel's corroded to the point that there's holes, in engineering terms, 100% section loss. So the bridge is still safe for pedestrian use now, but it's just something that's really moved up replacement of this bridge to an earlier timeline than we did initially anticipated. There's also two concrete piers in the river. Those are showing some signs of spalling. And given the age and kind of the issues throughout, we're now at a stage where full replacement is needed. At the same time, there's always opportunities to improve the bridge. So, one of the exciting things about thinking about replacing this is an opportunity to widen it. So, current trail standards require an 8 foot clear distance between handrails, or I'm sorry, not current trail standards. That's what the current bridge is. Current trail standards now require 14 foot clear between handrails. So really to meet that requirement, this bridge would be about 75% wider than it is today. Really would provide a much more comfortable user experience on there, especially now that the border trails connected to this bridge. Some other opportunities to improve the structure. So the current bridge, if you've ever been on it, maybe standing looking out at these beautiful views and someone's come jogging across or any other movement on the bridge has what's called excessive deflection, excessive bounciness and movement. And that can be uncomfortable, both to try and walk across and as someone standing and trying to enjoy the views. So opportunities to kind of improve that, improve the user experience. Also looking for ways to bring vehicles across. So I showed you in that earlier map that there's two pedestrian bridges that connect to Barton Nature Area. We currently have no way to get vehicles across for maintenance, just park operations, potentially even emergencies. So we're exploring options to see what it would take to kind of get some basic vehicles across as well. And then we also want to think about maximizing access to these incredible view sheds. I think this bridge provides one of the most scenic areas within the city of the river, as well as placemaking and really trying to make this bridge not just a connection point, but a destination in and of itself. And then we'll also talk about opportunities to improve the transition from the bridge to the border-to-border trail as well. Again, here for that transition improvement, you can see that right now it's about a 90-degree turn. And anytime you have, especially bicyclists, higher speeds, having a point where a trail has a 90-degree turn is going to be less than ideal. And so, another thing that we're thinking about in these early planning stages are these construction challenges we have on site. So, as we mentioned, there's two pedestrian bridges that connect to Barton Nature Area. We have no vehicle access, mostly because of the Amtrak Railroad that runs along the northeast side. There's laws in place, there can be no vehicle crossings. So, in order to get any construction equipment, cranes to the north side of this pedestrian bridge, we're really going to have to maximize access from the south. Back when this bridge was originally constructed in the 90s, the Department of Environmental Quality allowed for a gravel kind of causeway to be built in the river, which will just be really difficult to be permitted today. And just the fact that the bridge is such a long span means that we'll have to be creative with thinking about how we can get cranes to actually construct this bridge. So that's one of the things we're kind of thinking about and planning for early on. And so, what I'd like to talk about now are kind of the things that we're considering for the replacement structure. So, we've started an alternatives analysis to kind of explore various options and configurations for the bridge. One of the things we looked at were various structure types, bridge structure types from prefabricated trusses to a steel beam. Material of steel and the decking, and then kind of those placemaking qualities I alluded to as well. The aesthetics, how to blend it into the natural environment. And so I just like to talk a little bit about the different bridge types to kind of explain where we're headed. We did look at the prefabricated truss bridge, which is essentially fabricated off-site and then brought to the site in pieces, sometimes for shorter spans in whole. And it typically allows for rapid installation because it's already fully built out. So often it provides lower initial upfront costs. Given the constraints of our site, and the fact that it's such a long span, there's going to be challenges with having the truss bridge. So transporting and staging large bridge sections can be really challenging, could even require some road closures. Lifting requirements for this constrained site is challenging. And it also limits design options, so customization, opportunities for custom handrails or overlooks. You're really kind of stuck with this truss structure. And then, really one of the biggest reasons driving this is that they're more difficult to maintain and repair over the long term because it's a really complex system of components. It's all integrated. So there's more to inspect, more potential points of failure. So it really ends up being a higher cycle cost and a lower overall lifespan compared to some other options. And so the other option that we're considering is a steel beam bridge. Now, this is a picture of the Gallup Park Vehicle Bridge. It's not steel beam, but it's a concrete beam bridge, very similar. So one of the advantages of this is that it's constructed on site. So you have a lot more customization options because it's not, constructed in advance and having to be shipped to the site. So, due to the length of this bridge, concrete isn't feasible, but we can still get a lot of the benefits, of greater flexibility and customization with a steel beam. And so, some of these advantages are, the structural simplicity makes it really easy to inspect, maintain, repair. It often has a longer structure lifespan and those lower, overall repair and maintenance costs. And it'll, like we mentioned, it allows for customization, like, these bridge overlooks or custom railings as well. The typical drawbacks are that it can be a slightly longer construction time because you are building it on site. And it's typically a higher upfront cost, although that's mitigated a bit just because of our very long bridge span length and our access issues. Kind of brings these two options closer together from financial feasibility. So, next, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the other options. So, the bridge deck. So, this is where, the user really experiences the bridge. And so, we were looking at various options from concrete to wood. And with wood shown here on the current structure, you obviously have a more natural look, park-like feel. They're easy to replace over time. It's very low cost. The drawbacks are is that it's higher maintenance needs. Lumber degrades over time, holes develop, warping occurs. So it just requires a lot more maintenance to replace boards over time to maintain an accessible surface. Um, so it's also more limited from a load bearing capacity as well for looking at having vehicles across the bridge. So another option is a concrete deck. So this is a small bridge over by the Argo Cascades that has a concrete deck and kind of provides that seamless connection between the trail, also the border-to-border trail, and the bridge. So the advantages are concrete's very durable, it's low maintenance, you get that higher load bearing capacity to allow for vehicles. It's a very smooth surface, so accessibility is really not an issue to maintain over a long period. And then it's going to have a much longer lifespan and lower maintenance. Again, a higher initial cost. And then it can lack the pedestrian character of, a timber deck, but we can look to counterbalance that in other ways. So at this time, we're looking at doing a concrete deck on this bridge, kind of given all the factors in play. And then some of the other design considerations we're exploring, are the sense of a scenic overlook, similar to what we did at Gallup, a place to allow someone to step aside from the main path of travel and kind of take in these fabulous views of the river. As I mentioned before, the bridge to trail transition. Also, just looking at ways we can achieve that park-like aesthetic. So even if we're using a concrete deck, there are opportunities to weave in materials like wood and stone to create that natural connection to the environment, looking at similar, maybe entrance columns to kind of carry that visual continuity to this bridge as well as Gallop, kind of at either end of the river. And so now I can show you all a couple very early artist renderings. So this bridge has not been designed and engineered. Really, this is kind of an artist depiction of what this could potentially look like. So our preferred alternative is really leaning towards that steel beam structure, both for, life cycle, longevity, lower costs overall, and then that additional flexibility for design to really help it fit our site. And so here you'll see we're showing an overlook. There's an existing pier in the water. We'll have to explore a little more to see if that can be reused or if that'll be rebuilt. But as of right now, we're kind of showing it over the existing pier to capture those westward views. And so just zooming in a little, this can give you a sense of, how this space, I believe it's about 6 feet out, could allow you to have that, that moment of respite and kind of step away from the busyness of the trail. Similarly, this is another view kind of along the bridge trail, kind of showing that as well. And then here you can also get a sense of that larger width. So this is that full 14 feet clear from the railings. And really, it's providing a lot more comfort if there's bicyclists, people heading in two directions at once. There's a lot more buffer space. And so, early thoughts about how this structure might transition to the trail is that, the current structure is kind of a straight line out to the trail. And we thought at this kind of abutment structure right here that we would start a radius to kind of gradually turn the bridge in this last third, really probably more of a boardwalk type construction for this portion, but kind of gradually turn it and connect it in with the trail to be more seamless transition, give people more space to adjust. So that's something we're looking at as well. And then here's a view of what that might feel like, that transition point heading back. And, we're showing potentially some stone columns, could be similar to Gallop, could be slightly different. Again, kind of a place making a sense of continuity, presence, kind of sense of longevity to really kind of elevate the bridge experience. Oops. And then, public art is something that I'm sure we'll be considering as part of this project. The Ann Arbor Public Art Commission makes recommendations to City Council for which projects should incorporate public art, and we would imagine that would be a part of this project. Here are just two examples of recent public art as part of other projects. So there's decorative panels that are backlit in the Barton pedestrian tunnel. There was a new sculpture recently installed near the Gallup Park Bridge. So we're not exactly sure what form that public art would take yet, whether it would be integrated into the bridge design or whether it would be something more standalone in the vicinity of the bridge. But that's something else that we'll be considering as part of this process. And then for estimated project costs, so this is, very preliminary, but as of right now, from a planning standpoint, we're looking at the bridge construction probably coming in around 3.5 million itself. There's a 15% very typical construction contingency on top of that. And then we'd also have to budget for engineering. So both the initial design engineering and then some engineering oversight of the construction as well. So for planning purposes, our kind of all-in project budget is hovering right around $5 million, which is a very big project for parks. We've had a lot of big projects the last few years, but it's still well and above what our typical capital projects would be. So that is one of the reasons we'll be looking for different funding opportunities. So I mentioned early on that we're applying for a grant with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources. We'll also be exploring other grant opportunities and then really looking for various public and private funding to support that as well. We do have designated city park millage dollars But there's also other funding sources and other funding partners we'll be speaking to as well. Because it's along the border trail, that's part of the statewide Iron Bell Trail, which really helps us, get priority for funding, especially from grants or from the state and federal government. And so just for a sense of process and next steps, here we are in February, public meeting. April is when we'll be applying for the grant. We're kind of targeting summer to potentially begin the design engineering portion of work. Sometime in early winter, December or so, we should find out if we get the DNR grant. And then we'll probably be selecting a contractor and bidding probably next spring, so spring of 27, and would anticipate construction potentially beginning the fall of 2027. We would be targeting kind of a fall start time to avoid peak use in the summer, and then probably plan to have it open in the following spring, so spring of 2028. And so, you know, thank you all for coming today. We'll have time for questions in a little bit. I just wanted to provide my contact information up on the screen. And then the city has a new engagement hub where there's a website where you can sign up for updates on various projects. So if you go to engage.a2gov.org, here is what this project's page would look like. And then there's a little button up here that says follow, and then you can click that, be subscribed to the page, and get any updates that are posted as well. And so, with that, we'll kind of open it for questions and discussion. But first, I'll probably have Michelle just give everyone a rundown on the technology kind of use, kind of maybe before we get started. So, Michelle, I don't know if you're able to explain this.
Yes, so if you all, it looks like everyone is online. I don't see anyone that's called in, so we'll be focusing here on the left side where it says computer. If you hover over the bottom of your screen, there should pop up a little icon that says Q&A. If you don't see that, there is an icon that says more with three dots. If you click on that, there should be some more options that pop up that say Q&A. So this is more or less what it will look like. You can send in questions or comments here. They will come to all of the panelists that are on here, and I will read them out to the group, and then one of our panelists will be able to answer them for you. Zoom also records all of these, so we'll have all of the questions in written format as well, so we can keep those with us even after this meeting.
And Michelle, sorry if I missed this, but are they able to do the raise hand feature as well, or are we just doing the Q&A written comments?
Um,
I don't know how the meeting was set up.
I think with webinar, I'm not sure. I haven't been on the
We
other
could
side.
try it if someone has
Yeah.
the desire.
Yeah,
Okay.
someone can try that because we can unmute you and allow you to speak as well. But we generally start with just the submitting questions. So I do have one already in if you want me to read that
Great.
out loud to the group, but please continue to type them
Yeah.
in.
I just put up a
And
slide. I had a few things that just to prompt
sure.
people to think. But yeah, happy to take your first question, Michelle.
The first question is there a reason this project wasn't done last year when the railroad underpass was being done?
Yes. So the reason is we'd been inspecting it for many years, as I mentioned, but we did an inspection during construction of the tunnel. And that was the inspection where we removed the some of the timber decking and found out that the steel was in fact in worse shape than we had anticipated. We thought we had a longer lead time before a major work on this bridge or major replacement. And so that discovery really kind of moved up this replacement timeline. Yeah, in hindsight, having a big general contractor on site would have been great if we had plans already and they could do both. And it's never great to have, the site disrupted twice in a row. But this is the way the timing's worked out, unfortunately. But we're really excited for the improvements to the area. Hopefully, I answered that.
There aren't any other questions at the moment. If you want to share some of these things for our residents to consider, that might jog some
Yeah.
memory.
Yeah, I had a few up here. Just love to hear any thoughts you have on what you value most about this bridge, this area. What would a successful replacement bridge be to you all? Anything that you're careful to preserve in this area, part of the project. And then hearing from you what works well about the current bridge, what doesn't work well today. One of the things I really like about the current bridge, while it's a steel truss bridge, the handrail height is lower. Some truss bridges have the structure really elevated, which can be a cool experience. But one nice thing about this bridge is that you really are just at that handrail, guardrail height. So it feels very open. For those very big views, it just allows you to really take advantage of that. So that's another thing I didn't mention before, but that we're considering in this replacement is how to kind of maintain that sense of openness and that kind of view shed and visibility.
Okay, we have a few more questions that have come in. Um,
Great.
so based on your preliminary design work, how long do you anticipate the new bridge will last?
My hope would be we'd be looking at a timeline 50 years or more. I didn't mention this early on, but we should have, I believe we have Chris Ellenboss on the line. He's with OHM Advisors. They're the ones assisting us with this alternatives analysis. So before I say something I shouldn't, Chris, that'd be great if you could weigh in on kind of the timeline we could expect for lifespan.
Yeah, certainly I think 50 years minimum. I mean, a well-maintained steel bridge can push 80 to 100 years. Certainly, I think the existing bridge has lasted 35 at its current point. Our goal, certainly with this new bridge, is longer than that for sure. So, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, and I mentioned it early on. This bridge had some issues with the site that kind of led to its deterioration probably earlier than had those site conditions not been present. So, really hoping to get much more than 35 years out of this next structure.
Okay, I have another question here of what type of vehicles will need to cross?
Um, you know, Right now we're just looking at, a typical kind of pickup truck, maybe bringing some additional equipment across. We're really not looking at any big substantial equipment, but it's one of those things that, given the length of the bridge and the width of the bridge, it's already going to have a pretty substantial structural capacity just given its size. So there's potential we could accommodate more, but kind of as a baseline, we're hoping to at least get some equipment across for tree removal, to help facilitate native species management in the natural area, additional brush clearing. Um, Snow removal. So that's kind of the current thoughts, but it could potentially accommodate more, and we'll find that out more in detailed design.
Okay, we have a question here about integrating kayaks and canoes that come downriver. Has there been any thought about that?
I guess to clarify, integrating from like the river experience or as far as like a stopping point near the river. I'm not sure if I
That's a
understand
good
the
follow-up
question.
for this resident if they want to add any more clarifying thoughts, but it said any thought to integrate all kayaks and canoes that come downriver. So that's as much as
I'd
I.
say we're kind of looking to, maintain the current, clear distance between the bridge and the river, the current amount of openness that this bridge provides, so it shouldn't impact river traffic. There's been some talk about whether there'd be opportunities for informal, like entry and exit points from the river. maybe near one of the bridge abutments. I think that's something we'll explore. The Gallup Park Bridge, instead of putting traditional riprap, which is kind of um, pieces of concrete or large concrete boulders, we did that kind of stepped stone hillside that could potentially allow people to get down into and out of the water more easily. So I think that's something we'll explore. We haven't gotten to quite that level of detail, if that's what you're asking about.
Okay, yeah, he wrote in to clarify he's curious more about a resting or stopping place or
Okay.
access for canoes and kayaks.
Yeah, yeah. It's not something we've considered yet, but appreciate the thought.
Okay, we have another question that's going back to lifespan of bridges. It says, what's the projected lifespan of the various bridges you considered, and what is the cost of each of those?
Do you want me to
Chris, if I
take
can
that? Yeah.
turn that to you. Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
I think really the answer is similar. I mean, 50 years minimum. I think really it's beyond that point that we're trying to be cognizant of the maintenance on these. There's a lot of intricate connections when you have the steel truss bridge like is out there right now. And as you get corrosion and stuff, it can be very difficult to then maintain those, especially with such a large span. A steel beam bridge, really what we're looking at here, it's three large steel beams. Everything else is kind of built on those. Those are your main structural pieces. So the maintenance long term is a little bit easier. I guess cost wise, I know Hillary touched on this in the presentation. The difficulty of access, specifically to the far side, kind of evens these two out. If if we had easy access to get cranes to the far side of this location, the prefabricated option would be certainly cheaper. The problem is we have to build a temporary access in either instance, and that kind of negates a lot of the cost difference. So we're only looking at $200,000 difference on a $5 million project here.
Yeah, and another thing I'd add, just thinking about longevity, is I've been working on a lot of our various park bridges over the last few years. And a consistent thing we've found with steel bridges is when we have wood decking over them, they just tend to hold moisture and it tends not to dry out as much. And that bridge I showed an image of earlier in Argo, that's a steel bridge, but it has a concrete deck, has really just weathered a lot better than the other bridges that are right in that area that had wooden decking. So I think the combination of the steel beam with the concrete deck will really protect that steel for the long term as well, more so than, timber decking.
Okay. A couple comments have also come in. So there is a resident who wrote in that they like this plan and they're supportive of it, but also state, I hope it doesn't take as long as the Gallup Bridge. There still needs to be another tunnel beneath the railroad tracks near Huron Towers and the VA hospital to connect with the ARB and the Mitchell Field parcel across the tracks from the rest of Mitchell Field. So that's, I suppose, a consideration for the design team. Uh,
Yeah, that's been a long talked about connection. I know it's been in the city CIP for a long time. Everything I've heard about that connection is that there really needs to be a lot of university support to push that project forward. And to my knowledge, that hasn't been the case so far. So I think it's an identified need that's kind of waiting for that partnership, just to kind of share that information.
Hey, we have a question here about traffic. How do you envision handling traffic and parking on the south end of the bridge, especially since the gravel area has been taken away?
Yeah, great question. Originally, we really looked to see if we could get a few parking spaces, paved parking spaces there. There are a lot of issues with Huron River Drive. It's kind of, this isn't the best issue or best image, but kind of off the screen, there's a tight turn just east of here that doesn't have great visibility. With the current bridge and trail configuration, the most we could fit were just a handful of parallel parking spots. and there were just kind of safety and sightline concerns. So the current plan is to not put parking spaces back in this area. There is a full parking lot over near Barton Dam. That could be a connection to Barton Nature Area. And then now with the pedestrian tunnel, there's also a connection to the parking lot in Bandimere Park. There's two parking lots, but the one on the north side is quite close to this area. So, the gravel lot, that won't be coming back to this specific location, but those are kind of the two other options going forward.
Okay. This may be connected. It says, can you look into adding trail crossing signs on Huron River Drive so that hikers
Mhm.
will know how to get to the hilltop? Um, I don't know how to say this word. Kuelbeer.
Keebler, Langford.
Yeah, Langford, New
Yeah.
York area.
Yeah. Yes. So, I know that a lot of people choose to cross the road at that point. I mean, there's not a designated crosswalk. We can explore signage options that would help direct people, but I think given the sightlines we talked about, we can't necessarily tell people to cross here. So that's something we can explore. I appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
There's another comment here that hoping the bridge will look open and airy to really fit the undisturbed wide river scenery.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's definitely a goal of ours.
Currently, all of the questions and comments that we have in the queue. Um, but I know it takes a little while to type things in, so we can give people
Yeah.
a little bit more time.
Yeah, I'd also say a thing to think about would be, things that would make the bridge more comfortable for you, more accessible. If you have any thoughts, access to the bridge, would be happy to hear any comments. Things you enjoy on other bridges you like being on, or that are a nice experience. Always helpful to hear what's been successful elsewhere. Well, there's no other questions.
Yeah, I don't see any more coming in at the moment.
Okay. Um, as I mentioned before, there's the Engagement Hub website. If you just go to the Engagement Hub, type in Barton, this project will pop up. It has my contact information on that page as well, so you can always reach out to me if additional questions come to mind after the meeting. And then again, you can hit follow on that page and be signed up to receive notifications when updates are posted, and any future meetings as well. So I guess thank you all for joining. We can hang on a little bit longer, but don't feel like you need to stay. We appreciate everyone taking the time to come out and learn about the project.
We have a few more comments and
Oh,
questions.
okay. Well, let's get into them.
Um, please have a place to sit down while enjoying the view. I think it
Mm-hmm.
means on the
Like a
bridge.
bench or something. Yeah, bench or table.
Thanks for your design work. The new wide bridges upstream in the metro parks are great for biking.
Mm-hmm.
And then a question here is, have you studied what impact the bridge will have on traffic on Huron River Drive?
Um, I guess just to clarify, so this bridge, once it's constructed, shouldn't have any impact directly on Huron River Drive because it's just a pedestrian bridge, except for, designated park vehicles that might cross it. So, I guess the only impacts that I can think of to Huron River Drive would be potentially during construction because it's such a constrained site. So similar to the recent tunnel construction, there'll be times that there'll be contractors probably flagging vehicles in and out, and could potentially be some short-term lane closures or whatnot, but nothing identified at this point. But I'd say that's the only temporary disruption to your on-river drive.
Right. That's everything.
Right. Well, again, thank you all for coming and feel free to shoot me an email if anything else comes to mind. Be happy to help answer any other questions.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.